Back, everybody. This is Paul again from 2012crossing.com, and I'm going to talk a little bit about today a very difficult subject for a lot of people, and I want to introduce it here. A lot of people who watch my videos have seen other presentations online and so on, and done a lot of research and read some books. And what I'm talking about here is the possibility that there is, and has been for a long, long time, what I might call an exo-civilization. And what I mean by that is there is, and has been for a really, really long time, some beings on this planet with very advanced technology for a really long time. And the reason I say that is because, for one thing, there are a lot of stories from around the world that there were beings who could fly very, very long time ago, and there weren't that many of them, and they called them gods, and they went around the world in different places, and all around the world there are similar stories about beings who came from the sky and taught all kinds of stuff to human beings. Now, it's a very, very complicated subject, and I'm going to refer you to the works of Zecharia Sitchin and Michael Tellinger and, oh boy, Joseph Farrell. A lot of people who've written about this subject, and it's very complicated because if you just look at the overall picture, that throughout history there have been at least some kind of beings. You might say, for example, let's say Sumeria. They had very detailed records in which they described these people, and they often described them as being taller, but they were responsible for teaching all kinds of stuff. And the civilization of Sumer, and this popped right out of nowhere, and apparently the way the history goes, there was a world catastrophe really, really long time ago, and after that time you notice that here and there around the world popping up were kind of monuments and restorations and a whole bunch of activity and stories that some group of people, beings, were able to kind of redevelop civilization. And I can't get into all the details here because it's just really complicated. You need to read a bunch of books. But the idea is, first of all, there's a lot of stories from the past. And the idea is that there's a small number of beings, and they often, because of their technology, they manage to live a really long time. And they seem to control and manipulate and use the labor. And slavery and the search for gold has been around for a really, really long time. And there's just a really good books out there by Michael Tellinger, for example, Slave Species of God. And if you just look at, there's a lot of conversation now about so-called Illuminati. And regardless of whether you say it was this organization or that organization, or whether it had this person or that person involved in it, you can see through history manipulation of so-called elite, the so-called divine right to rule, the so-called bloodlines, the kings, the ones that were installed here that said, we have the right to rule. Why? Because of our bloodline. Why? Well, why is that? Well, we're just more powerful. That's why. Just listen to us and obey us and whatever. And you can see that history of control and manipulation for a really long time. And back in the day, a long time ago, people actually said, hey, there was this being, and it came in a vehicle, and it came from the sky, and it was bright light, and it did this and that. So, you have to really look into this, because if that's really true, now, technology, these beings, these kinds of people, I believe, in the last civilization, at the end of the last ice age, and again, there weren't that many of them, compared to the rest of the population, but they had control. Whoever survived and was able to go out into space or into the air and survive a catastrophe could come down later and just be gods and say, well, if you obey us, this is what we'll do for you, And there's just a really, the dots start coming into place here as you look at the picture and connect the dots. Now, what's going on now is you see that technology is still being hidden from us. Definitely. I mean, there's secret budgets from these, almost every country has some kind of a secret budget. And what do they do with that budget? Well, we never get to find out, but you better believe that they're investing in technology. Now, do you think that after 70 years of having the rocket engine that they haven't figured out something in secret? And if they did find out some way of moving some kind of a ship through space or some kind of new physics, do you think they'd tell everybody about it? I don't think so. Because there are beings, there are people, human beings, who just really, really like control. And that's been proven throughout history. And the idea that, well, it's not happening now, I believe that there has been like remnants of a past civilization that basically they had the capacity to go, say, to Mars. They might have bases. They don't need to actually be on Earth. And they've been around for a really, really long time. And what we have to deal with now is the population on the Earth is so large that it's very difficult for them to hide. People have cameras, they're seeing all these things in the sky. And so there's a constant manipulation of the media to try to distract people. You never have a conclusion. Like, even on some of these TV channels where they have, you know, old ancient aliens and so on, or UFO searchers, they never seem to actually come to a conclusion. You have to come to a conclusion about this subject through your own detailed research and reading. And I recommend a lot of my playlists and so on, because I've done a lot of research on my own to satisfy my own curiosity, basically, and need to know. And I'm really convinced that even to this day there is secret technology and secret kinds of aircraft and secret kinds of space technology and computers and all kinds of amazing technology with the design of basically keeping in place the idea that, look, you know, if you were born a king, if you were born a prince, let's say, hey, you wake up and you get to be a certain age and you realize, you know what, I'm the son of a king or a queen, and I have power. And, well, why? Because you just have to be born there. But there's this whole thing about bloodlines to try to keep it pure, because apparently these beings that have been around for a long time eventually intermarried, and there's been a big mix around the world. So now basically there's millions and billions and billions of people who already have that good brain, and they have the possibility, and we have the technology now. And I believe that there's an effort to try to confuse people and maintain control of a very, 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 very ancient system. Money, labor, having people do things for you so that you can, say, fly in the sky or have a palace or whatever. Basically, you don't have to actually work or produce anything. You're just kind of born into wealth and so on. You just spend most of your life just deciding how you're going to throw your money around. So, I really urge people to investigate this subject of what they call an exo-civilization. Richard Dolan, the UFO, I really believe that it's been around for a really long time, you see. And the idea of the hidden eye on the top of the pyramid, and you notice that separation, it floats above the pyramid because it's separate. There's an awareness among a certain group of people that we are separate, or we think we are separate, and we are going to be the ones that see over everything and manipulate everything. And there are people who live today who think like that and act like that, and some of them have an awful lot of money and power. Now, what we can do about it is basically, first of all, we got to wake up and realize that there's a lot of manipulation going on, and we're in the middle of it here. But every human being on this earth right now has the power to wake up and use their brain and their consciousness and be awake. And you can see that there are efforts to suppress that and make people unconscious and not educated and full of doubt and confusion. But again, I only have a short time here, and I'm going to talk more about this, but I do urge people to do research and check back here now and then for updates, conversation about this subject.